one other thing then. Just looking at this information right here in our schedule, we have our special senses lab, that's going to be Monday. We have special senses is going to be the lecture material for the Wednesday session we have here. Then the following Monday, you have your lab exam 3. And then that's immediately followed the next week, the next Monday, by the cumulative lab final. That's why that 26th date might be important if you have an opportunity to get into that. We're going to have a chance, like I said, on Monday is really jam-packed because I'm going to open up the bodies there for you to take a look at that. But if you need or you would like to have more time with regard to that, you might want to check out that date, that 26th date for that, because there's a whole lot jammed into that Monday dissection of the eye and the special senses information we're going to be covering. So it's really loaded Monday. So I would encourage you to look at those videos that are posted there for that special senses information. We're going to be dealing with special senses in the lecture. Then we don't meet a week from let's see, 2 weeks from today, we don't meet. That's a Thursday, and that's the Thanksgiving recess. So we're off that particular day, all right? Then we come back on the Monday, like I said, on December 1st, that's cumulative lab final. We're going to do autonomic nerve system. I've posted those notes and the PowerPoint for that already in Canvas there. So if you want to look ahead to that information. And then the very last thing we're going to do here, December 8th, is your cumulative lecture final exam, which is going to have there's going to be a lot of concentration with regard to special senses and autonomic nerves, probably about at least a third of it, and then the rest of it's going to be everything from the beginning of the semester here, okay? You follow what I'm talking about? There's a whole lot coming down real quick now, in addition to the exam we do tonight, okay? So we're going to take about 45 minutes here this evening, and then we'll get into the exam, all right? So we're going to continue with some information on integration of the nerve system here. I'll try and dip into that special senses information. There's a whole lot of information there that needs to be covered, and then we'll move on with stuff here, okay? We're good? Questions? All right. So, the brain stem. Are we going to where the brain stem is located? Okay, brain stem. Ascending, descending pathways through the brainstem. Ascending are doing what? I got it. They're going up. What are they carrying? Sensory, yeah? And the descending are carrying... So we have a bunch of nuclei here. Nuclei of the cranial nerves number 3 through 10 and 12 are located here, okay? So what we see here, there's something about 11 is missing. Remember that one? 11 was the one that we talked about, had some question there relevant to its being a cranial nerve, all right? It was that accessory type of thing there, that spinal accessory. All right, so we have many reflexes important for survival are located here. We talk about heart rate, the blood pressure, respiration, sleep, swallowing, vomiting, coughing, and the sneezing reflex. You might think, well, those are kind of goofy terms for, having some reflexes here. All right, we're going to receive, in this brainstem, receive sensory input from collateral branches of the sensory spinal cord pathways. Most of the cranial nerves are going to be carrying some information here. All right, there's a reference to the reticular activating system that's located here. Is a group of nuclei, but notice this, they're scattered. There's not a specific, we're told it's not a specific locus there, but they're scattered throughout the brainstem, and they're going to be regulating the cyclical motor functions, okay? And so sleep-wake cycles, all right, that type of, what we oftentimes make reference to as a circadian rhythm here. Receives input from cranial nerve number 2, optic, okay? Number 5, trigeminal. We're good at this one. Vestibular cochlear, cranial nerve number 8, hearing and balance. Okay, ascending, tactile sensations, that type of thing. Pathways and descending neurons from the cerebral cortex. Wakefulness is maintained by information coming from trigeminal thalamic tracts here, wakefulness. General anesthetics depress the RAS. So when we talk about something that's trying to numb some pain sensations or things like that, an anesthetic type thing, we're going to have the reticular activating system gets involved with that. So we see it's reported to be kind of scattered in this particular area right here. Somatosensory, olfactory, auditory, visual, okay, those are the sensory inputs that are processed in this area here. All right, the brainstem is also integration site for descending. Descending now are motor. Ascending are sensory, descending are going to be a motor. Motor output functionally classified as somatic. Are we good at the term somatic now? We talked about that numerous times already. And parasympathetic, okay? Somatic motor here we go with some cranial nerves again. I've told you repeatedly it's really important for you to kind of lock in those cranial nerves. 3, are we good with 3? Okay, 4. Okay, and 5, 6 right here. So those are all involved with what? These are the eye movers. The reflexes associated with that. And the nerves controlled by superior colliculi. Do you know where the superior colliculi is located? Superior colliculi is part of a greater part or a larger part called the what?
Midbrain.
What is it?
Midbrain.
Not hearing you.
Of the midbrain.
Midbrain, okay, but what was that component we talked about where we saw the superior colliculi? Back there in the back of the room. Come on, Anthony, what is it?
Is it the quadrigemini?
Corpora. Corpora quadrigemini. Good answer. All right, corpora quadrigemini. We had the superior colliculi and the inferior colliculi. Do you remember where those are located? Posterior aspect here. Okay, really important. The superior colliculi are the ones associated with, concerned with eye involvement here, okay, visual. All right. Now, here's cranial nerve number 5. What's mastication? Chewing, right? Cranial nerve number 7, facial expression. 9 and 10, swallowing and speech. Okay? So it's going to be important. I'm going to be, kind of hammering those hard in that final exam there, so make sure that you're clear on your cranial nerves. Here we have some parasympathetic. Notice this. The parasympathetic, that's our rest and digest we've been making reference to again and again. Here's 3 for pupillary constriction. Pupillary constriction. Why are you going to constrict? What's that going to do? Pupil constriction.
It's going to control the amount of light coming in and protect your eyes from too much light.
Okay, we're going to restrict the amount of light that's capable of coming into the retina, that area of the eye here. Sneeze and salivation reflexes. So here we're going to make reference to 3 different reflexes here with 5, 9, and 10. We have a gag reflex. We have a cough reflex with 10. We have the salivation reflex with 5. So those are all associated with the parasympathetic. All right. We made reference to this a couple of different times when I was talking with you about Senator Kirk, and then I also made reference to Gabby Gifford. We made reference to something about speech and articulation, and aphasia was brought up there. Area normally found in the left cerebral cortex. We're good with where left is going to be? Okay, you got to know your right from your left with regard to this stuff here. Wernicke's area there, sensory, speech, understanding what is heard and thinking of what you're going to say or respond to something that's here. Broca's area, Broca's speech area. The other one, we have Wernicke's and Broca's. They're on which side of the brain? Left cerebral cortex area here. This is a motor speech, sending messages to the appropriate muscles to actually make those sounds, to have us be able to articulate those sounds here. Wernicke's and Broca's area connected by what are called this fasciculus here. To read aloud a word that is seen here, we're going to have primary, you're going to see it, visual cortex has to get engaged. Wernicke's area, we're going to go up here, sensory, understanding what is heard or seen here. We're going to go to Broca's area to kind of respond to it, and then the primary motor cortex to actually be able to direct muscle activity for speech. Have it make some sense, okay? To repeat a word that has been heard, primary auditory is a hearing mechanism here. Wernicke's area again, Broca's area again, and the primary motor cortex in order to then command the muscle activity that's necessary. But you're going to have the visual cortex for sight, you're going to have the auditory cortex for the hearing response here. So here's the left side, here's our Wernicke's area, here's our Broca's area. Okay, cortical activity during speech. We have the visual cortex. Action potentials from the eyes reach the cortex where the word is seen. Recognized visual association areas, those are going to be posterior area here of the brain. Wernicke's, signal representing the word is understood. Broca's, action potentials representing the word are conducted. In the Broca area, the word is formulated as it will be spoken. That's where we try and register how it is we want to respond. Now the primary motor cortex, are we good with where that would be located? Where would you look for that on the brain? What is it? Pre-central gyrus. Does that make sense? The primary motor area is the precentral gyrus. Movements are programmed. Finally, the primary motor cortex where the proper movements are triggered here. All right, so we have to be able to communicate between right and left hemispheres. Okay? The right and left here controls muscular activity and receives sensory information. The left, this is the right side. The left side controls the muscular activity and receives sensory information from the right. Remember that decussation we talked about? We've got some crossover here. So we have the commissures. The corpus callosum is that major one that's going to be allowing us to communicate between the right and the left hemispheres. Language and possibly other functions like artistic activities. Notice this, they're not shared equally. We seem to have some dominance with the left side being more specifically associated with that logic or mathematical or skills like that, and the right side being more the artistic situation. Three-dimensional, spatial perception, recognition of faces, musical ability, right side. All right, we went through all of this stuff, the beta, the alpha, the theta, delta waves. We're going to record those waves as cycles per second. Hertz is the term that's used here. We went through all of this stuff previously. We're not going to register that again. Here's some of those electroencephalography stuff here. All right, so let's deal with a little bit of memory. It's kind of an interesting topic to deal with right here. There's a little bit of, kind of teasing you with some information about memory right here. You have a working memory. It says, occurring when brain briefly stores information to perform a task. You have to have that. It's kind of a working memory. You store it for, they use an example here, say a phone number. So we have memory, here we go from working memory, we have something called short-term memory. Retained for minutes, or maybe even for days, but it's going to involve some long-term potentiation in order to register it for longer periods of time here. The long-term memory, now we're talking about having it packed away for a much longer period of time, filing it away there, maybe even for your entire life here. So what a term here says, it involves consolidation and strengthening the synaptic connections. It's kind of interesting about what physiologists have been able to figure out about how we pack some information away that we can remember from childhood, decades ago in some cases here. Declarative is called explicit memory here, retention of facts. That's kind of what you do in this class, right? Isn't that kind of what has to take place with regard to this, where we talk about the idea of having something where you have factual information has to be stored. The scientific areas here are factually rated, so we talk about a declarative. But then we also have this one where we talk about procedural, and that's going to be the memory that's involved with developing a particular skill here, riding your bicycle or doing a particular, just writing in general would require you to have a procedural memory that is involved with those activities that require that repetitive performance here. So you're using this, the cerebellum and the premotor area here. So this is kind of an interesting flow chart. We have our working memory. Unfortunately, a lot of that you use it and you don't. Oh, what was that this morning? I said, what'd you have for breakfast this morning? I don't know, I don't remember. That type of thing, okay? That makes sense? Do you have to remember that? Is that important to remember? Maybe, in some circumstances it might be important. So long-term potentiation means developing what they say is those synaptic connections. Short-term memory, we're going to pack it away here. Most is lost within a short period of time as well, unless we do some consolidation of information, attach some other factors to it. Long-term memory, we talk about declarative and procedural. Much is lost through time in the declarative. We go back to that one, and that was made reference here, retention of facts. A year from now? A month from now? How much of what we cover here in anatomy and physiology class is going to be retained? You know what I tell my students all the time is I said, I might know your name and be able to recognize you, throughout the entire semester from almost day one. I make an effort to try and get to know your names and be able to call you by name right from day one. But as soon as the semester is over, I see you in the hallway and I say, I know you look real familiar, but I don't remember your name. It's almost like the slate gets erased right there, and then I start all over because they have another semester of students coming in. Do you follow what I'm talking about? It's almost like it very quickly I pack those away as just saying, I might remember the face, but I may not necessarily remember your name, okay? And you were asking me about this student of about maybe a dozen years or so ago. No, I'm sorry, I don't remember them. But if I saw them, I might say, oh yeah, you look real familiar. I remember what class you're in. I could tell you who some other students were there. But that's kind of interesting how memory is packed away. So we have the declarative and we have the procedural. Procedural memory, driving your car, riding a bicycle, doing some type of skill, playing a piano, things such as that. A small amount is lost through time. It's that old routine, if you don't use it, you lose it type of thing there, okay? You lose that capability that you have. This is kind of getting into the chemistry of how we do that. How do we, the physiologists have kind of figured out how we get something into long term, and we talk about it as potentiation. How do you move it from here to here and from here over to here type of thing, and we make reference to the amount of glutamate. We were talking about glutamate as kind of an amino acid there, right? One of those amino acids we made reference. Released by the presynaptic neuron. And we go to where presynaptic would be? Should know pre from post now, presynaptic. Okay, and we have here, these are vesicles now. Usually, when we've drawn these vesicles, they had acetylcholine as a neurotransmitter in here. Well, now we're using a glutamate released by the presynaptic neuron increases. Glutamate binds its receptors and causes ligand gated, okay? We have to attach here, and that's gonna open up, okay? Ligand gated ion channels to open. And then we're gonna flood some calcium into that area there. Calcium, calmodulin activates calmodulin. Remember modulating, dialing it up, down, down, dependent protein kinase 2, which activates the glutamate receptors here. And then we have causes translocation of more glutamate receptors to the cell surface to increase the number of receptors postsynaptic membrane. Okay. So what it amounts to is that this is how we talk about, we go from going from something that is going to support a recollection of a memory event in our neural processing here. So it requires the prior information of short-term memory. In order to have a long-term memory, you have to have something that initiated it. This is what it started with, and then you've kind of packed it away there. Consolidation, the gradual process of transferring short-term memory to long-term by performing new and stronger synaptic connections. New ones to just kind of support and kind of bolster what you may have learned at one time here. I look upon it as being something that may be similar to, I learned something in this manner, but then I've got some supporting information that helps me now pack it away a little more carefully, or with some other facts that make it easier to recall that one event, or having some other associations that take place. New proteins that increase the size and number of synaptic contacts to form dendritic spikes. Are you good with dendrites? Remember we talked about a neuron, we had dendrites, we had this cell body, and we had the axon. Does that recollection work there? Kind of memory thing here. Increased long-term potentiation. It's going to take place, just kind of repetitive stuff here. So Repetition and association of the new information with existing memories assist in the transfer from short-term to long-term. I use that term quite frequently where I mentioned to you about spaced repetition. This old idea of cramming information, you know, I'm going to get it all the day before, doesn't work for me. I'm guessing it might not work as well for some of you, but if you, a little bit today, a little bit tomorrow, you know, we're only meeting 2 days a week here, and right at the beginning of the semester, I make reference to the fact you should probably plan on spending a little bit of time every day just to bolster or support some information that you had from the previous sessions we've had. And in that way, it's this spaced repetition. We're transferring information from short-term to long-term, which makes a whole lot more connection capabilities. The retrieval then required accessing part of the memory from different, we talk about, that's an interesting term they use here by the authors. They say a pigeonhole of the brain. We have little pockets, little mailboxes you stuff things into there. All right, I've made reference to, and the limbic system has come up a number of times in our discussions here, where it's kind of parked in on that, we have that that longitudinal fissure in the center, we have the transverse fissure here, okay? We're going to have the separation between the frontal lobes and the temporal lobe over here. And we talk about diving into that area, and that's where it's made reference to the limbic system. It includes the olfactory cortex, a major source of sensory import, deep cortical regions, and the various nuclei. Now, notice this. The limbic system is part of our influencing emotions. What's that? Do you have an emotional tie to something at all? Any of you? Hopefully to maybe a parent, or a brother, or a sister, or a close friend, okay? Emotions, emoting. Visceral responses to emotion. What does that mean? What's a visceral response to emotion? What have I made reference to over and over again regarding visceral? Every time you hear that, you should be thinking what? Gut. Your gut. So what's a gut response to an emotion?
Throwing up.
Automatic,
I'm sorry?
like without thinking, like an automatic response. Sort of.
Okay, but what might that actually mean? A visceral response to emotion.
It has a physiological effect on your body, whether that be thinking
Have you heard about people saying they're heartbroken? What's that mean? You broke my heart. Is that a visceral response? Sounds like it could be. Man, that was like a gut punch. Someone told you something, it's just like you just buckled over with kind of a sense of, man, you were just gut punched. You just really kicked in the head here with this thing or something like that. So it says influences emotions, visceral responses to emotions, motivation, mood, sensations of pain, but it also could be a pleasure. Okay, so this is our limbic system. We've made reference to it, kind of diced it in there here and then. Basic survival instincts here. Acquisition of food and water. Now, reproduction is an interesting capability of the species. Now, it is not one of the systems of the body that's required for survival for you. It is for the species, and we don't care whether you reproduce at all or not. In some cases, we hope some people don't, okay? But the key thing about it is that it is not a system of the body that's required for our individual survival, but if we're talking about nobody decides to reproduce, the species dies out. That hasn't happened recently, so I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. But the point about it is reproduction is considered a basic survival instinct here, oddly enough. But we do talk about the acquisition of food and water. Are those essential for your existence? Sure. Have you heard of pheromones before? Pheromones. Pheromones come up from time to time in various different listings here, but they're molecules released by one organism that have an effect on another. For example, females release pheromones that affect menstrual cycle of other women. It's one of those oddities of a substance that gets released here, this molecule, an odorant that can be released by, and it's not uncommon in certain circumstances where I've read about this. I haven't, I don't know that I've ever had a woman tell me this, but a group of women will all be menstruating at the same time. And that's just, huh? How does that work? Well, it's been related to pheromones here. But it also is considered to be pheromones are associated with the attraction between the sexes as well. A satisfaction center is located within that limbic system here. And then we also make reference to the hippocampus. A connection to the limbic system is important. Again, we made reference to that just a few slides back with survival here. All right, so we get to the last point on this particular information right here, and we talk about the effect of aging. Always kind of a fun topic for a person my age to talk about aging and the nerve system here. Gradual decline in sensory and motor function. That is kind of interesting. If we would look at the average age of professional baseball players, and you say, well, how come there aren't any 40 or 45, 50-year-old baseball players that are World Series contenders there? What's the deal with that? Anybody want to offer a comment on that? We just finished the World Series here. What's the deal? Why weren't there any 45, 50-year-old players on the teams there? They're all busted up physically? Is that it?
Things don't work the same no more.
What is that? That doesn't...
They age and they can't, if you're a pitcher at 45, you ain't throwing like you used to be when you was 25. So you're just aging, all your body parts and things start to get a little...
Think in terms of the reaction necessary to hit a 100-mile-an-hour baseball. I mean, some of those pitches from the World Series, they were talking about them coming across at 100, 103 miles an hour. I mean, you certainly don't want to get hit with one of them, but trying to hit one is the other thing. For me, it would be accidental if I actually connected with a ball that's coming at me at 100 miles an hour. That'd be purely, it's like winning the lottery for me. Think in terms of your reflexes. Now, you shouldn't worry about that just yet, because all of you are at an age where you should be kind of in the prime of those things. But most of those ball players are probably between their 20s and mid-30s at most. There's an occasional outlier there, but generally speaking, for that reason, because the decline in motor function or sensory function, things such as that. Receptor neuron numbers decrease. That's just great. Balance and coordination decrease. Why don't we have any 40-year-old gymnasts? They're going to compete at the Olympic level? What were most of the Olympic athletes, the female Olympic athletes, what ages were they? Come on.
18, 20, 19, 21.
They were in the teens and early 20s, right? Mm-hmm. And by the time, a couple of them, they're retiring at 25. Huh? You're retiring from competition at an Olympic level at age 25. Why is that? Right here, balance and coordination aren't quite there anymore. Body's been abused for maybe a dozen years or more doing that. Reflex is slow. That's what I was talking about, trying to hit a 100-mile-an-hour pitch coming at you. Size and weight of the brain decreases. Decreased short-term memory in most people. That's kind of interesting. Long-term memory is unaffected or improved. That I find really fascinating. I remember those things from, my childhood, but talk about something that happened last week or last month or something. I don't know. All right, changes in sleep patterns. Less REM sleep. How many hours of sleep do most of you get? Well, not you. I know you're probably about 2 hours a night, right?
About 3.
3, okay, see?
I'm like 4 or 5.
4 or 5 hours? You feel rested with 4 or 5 hours? No, it should be more, but what you're living on is 4 or 5. Out of necessity, okay? Family, job, class, things like that.
8.5
8.5? Taking the high number there. Yeah, you.
6 or 7.
6 or 7? Is that a restful? 8.5? Is it restful? Feel well rested with that? Anthony, what about you back there?
Depends, but probably 6 to 7.
Changes in the sleep patterns, does that influence nerve system function? Absolutely. REM sleep gets engaged with that. We talked about stroke last time. Talk about hemorrhagic stroke and ischemic stroke, made reference to Kirk with regard to that. And then the final information right here, okay? All right, you should have some notes there about special sense. We're going to touch on just a few things here on that topic, and then we'll move into your exam tonight.